Great.
So, welcome to Make Your Own Fun. I am here with comedian and actress KJ Alfrey. Welcome to the show. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing all right. A little soggy and wet here in LA, but we're holding up okay.
Okay, well, we're having some rain here, and you can see it's kind of like the humidity is kind of going crazy with my hair, but it is what it is. So, let me fill the folks in and say that we met, well, what I like to say, finally, for the first time at the Culver City Film Festival, a movie we both worked on, which is Body Count. So I'm kind of curious, how did you get involved with that, and how did you meet Jennifer Nangle?
Sure. That is a great question, and I love origin stories. So that origin story, what it was is during COVID in 2021, I actually moved from Koreatown to Studio City, and that was just a part of my journey. I needed a shift and a change. And I was on because of COVID, COVID brought me to my knees in every which way possible mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, all of the above. And so when I moved to Studio City, I had seen that as an opportunity to kind of start over, rebuild. And in doing so, I really was able to take a step back because of COVID and see what do I want to do with my life and what am I doing and what have I done and all of that beautiful like existential like what is my why and like what makes me happy. And so I started utilizing, and social media is a tough one because it really is heartbreaking for me, and it's the land of compare and despair for me as well. However, it can also be a beautiful place if used properly for connections. So I started following and searching and um, for other creatives. And one of the other creatives that I found was Tracy Burr. And I loved what she was doing, and I loved how positive she was. And she was an actor, and not just that, but I felt seen by her, and not just um, because oh, this person is liking my content or commenting. It was very equal sided, like responses, and very she was very supportive and encouraging, which I found just amazing because I saw this creative artist, this actress that I was looking up to that was doing all these horror films. I couldn't believe that she was so supportive. And she goes, "Come with me to this event and do this with me and me." And so she introduced me to a lot of people. And because of that, I got to meet Jen. I got to meet Queen Malvolia herself. And so Jen and I just, we were able to hit it off and talk. And Jen was such a kind, sincere soul and an amazing artist. And we just connected, and we kept that connection. And as a result of that, she said, "Hey, I'm working on this project. Do you want to read it? And maybe we could think about you being involved in it some way." And I said, "Yeah, that'd be wonderful." And so I read some of the script that she sent me, and I loved it, and I loved the opportunity. And I've been a huge horror fan my ever since I was a kid. This is back before they had like parental controls, and I was watching all the HBO, Cinemax, Showtime, all that stuff. So I grew up with Freddy Krueger and Chucky and all that beautiful stuff. And so when I got to read this horror script and being able to really see characters and create characters in my head that haven't even lived on screen yet, it was such a gift. And so I told her my thoughts and how I enjoyed it. And she's like, "Well, there's this character Krista," and I said, "I love her." And yeah, and it just went from there. And Jen and Tracy have been a source of just comfort and uh, just a source of just creativity in my world after ever since. So I'm very grateful for them. So
That's
that's how I
great.
found Body Count. And yeah, yeah, yeah. Long
I gotta
story.
say, because the first time I got to see your segment was at the premiere, and I laughed so hard because one of the great things about acting and about writing and making movies is when you can relate to something that's supposed to be like equally horrifying and funny. So like your character of Krista, when she's in the apartment and she's got that booze
Yeah.
and she's wearing like the cheerleader outfit from when she was in high school, and it's
Yeah.
just like, oh my God, like on some level, everybody can relate to that, but it's also like really tragic and sad that it's like, oh my God, this character peaked in high school, and the only way she can like mentally and emotionally get through her bullshit that she's dealing with is to just
Yeah.
put on the old uniform and just like relive the glory days, and like the landlord's beating down the door and stuff. And I just was, I mean, that was what was so great, is because you can, as a viewer, you can relate to like, oh my God, she's going through this horrible ordeal. But the funny thing is like, she really held on to that uniform for a hell of a long time.
Yeah. Well, the fun thing about Krista is that she was and I related so much to her, just like what you said, but she is the ultimate victim. Horror movie or not, she is the ultimate victim because it's always everybody else's fault. Everybody else is the bad guy.
Right.
But then she does everything she can to still be like, well, I'll stick around these people and
Oh
because
yeah,
they're
all the enablers and everything. Yeah.
yeah, she's just so she's the ultimate victim. And so like when she becomes an actual victim, it's just like, yeah, that makes sense. It's time. But
Um,
yeah, I mean, who can't relate to being tortured by the past? And it's just such a human experience for all
Yeah,
of us.
and like I said, it's equally both sides of that great coin, when it's like, oh God, she's going through this whole thing with the
Yeah.
landlord and the
Uh-huh.
drinking, and then it's like, but she really held on to that uniform for a hell of a long
Uh-huh.
time.
Yeah. Oh
All right,
yeah.
so let's hop
Absolutely.
back in your Wayback Machine of choice and let me know, because I know, like me, you're not originally from California. So what first got you interested in acting? I mean, were you like a kid, or was it something when you were like a teenager or older?
Yeah. So as a kid, I was always extremely involved in all of the plays in school and all of the choirs in school. Um, Even in like middle school, my friends and I would get together and we would take like a Roald Dahl story and we'd put it up on stage. And I'd play like the prince or like some really out there outlandish character. Um, and I loved it. And it wasn't weird. I was never like, well, I don't want to play the prince. I want to play I always wanted to play the most fun, weird part because that was the most exciting stuff for me. It's just, I don't know. And I always relate to the weird outcasts, like people that I relate to those people more than I do the lead characters where,
Well, the
they have
leads in most movies, especially like romantic comedies, they're like these perfect people, and it's like they're living in a formula life. Like
to
the
living.
average romantic comedy is, girl meets boy, boy
Yeah.
or girl messes it up in the second
Yeah.
act somehow, and then the third act is like, well, how can their friends, make them see what they did wrong and get them back
Yeah.
together?
Yeah.
It's like, I
Yeah.
wish life was that easy.
I know, it's so formulaic, as you just said. I know it's a beautiful, safe formula, and I love rom coms. Don't get me wrong, I adore them as much as I adore horror. But yeah, so I was always doing that as a kid growing up. I was always creating my own radio shows. I had my own little recorder and everything, and I was always I'd take my parents' video camera and I would make my own shows. So that was just something that I did that was a survival thing for me growing up, so I
Okay.
didn't have to deal with the external stuff going on. So I found solace in that, and I found solace in stories. I found solace in plays. I would actually I went looking for this, not my parents, but I would be like, "Hey, mom and dad, there's this theater camp. Can I please do it? I want to go do." And because I wanted to do it, I would actually get in fights with my mom because I know we were in Denver, but there were still opportunities for like commercials and stuff like that. And
There's
I would
always
get
stuff going
so
on.
right, and I would get so mad because I'd know like this girl, these other girls, their moms would be putting them up for auditioning for commercials and all this other stuff, and I would get in fights with my mom because I'd be like, why aren't you a show mom? Like, why
Oh,
aren't you putting
so
me?
even
I
like
would get
back then, you had the, what is it, FOMO, fear of missing out?
Yes, I was like, I could be doing these commercials and stuff. Why aren't you like putting me up? Like, why aren't you allowing me to have this world? And And her, or what she would say is that, she wanted me to have a normal childhood, and just have fun.
That's
And I
fair.
get that, but it was also more of she had her own shit going on in her own TV show. So she really didn't have the energy or the mindset or the,
There's only so
focus
many
to be
hours in
able
the
to.
day, right?
Right, exactly. And so like she just was not the mom that was going to drive me to all this stuff. And like her kid was not going to be her focus. And so but I always knew this was something I wanted to do. After I graduated high school, I wanted to move from Denver and go straight to LA. And my dad was pretty much the fuck you are. Like you're going to college. And I was like, well, fine, but I'm going to college in California. And again, he went the fuck you are. And I
Smart dad.
yeah, well, he was. I didn't realize this. As you get older, you learn more things, right? You become aware of. He was concerned that college equals partying and drinking and sororities and fraternities and trouble, and so he didn't know. I was always such a goody two shoes growing up. He didn't know like is this going to be what sets me off and gets me cuckoo crazy? Like we don't like who knows. And so I did my first year at in Fort Collins, Colorado State University, and I never got to do any acting or plays there. Not a single acting, but I mean, I did acting classes, so I got to perform stuff in my
Right.
which was very rudimentary. It was stuff that I had already done in like middle school and high school, which is fine. That a lot of people don't can work on their craft or practicing or learning about acting that young. So but I was still humble enough and desperate enough at that time that I was in it. And the beautiful thing about that though was I got involved in learning what it meant to really be like a stagehand and working backstage and
Right.
striking and all of that. And I am so grateful for that because those are also jobs and positions I have had later on, even on film set, that I love and adore. And it has just made me a better, not only actor, but a better human being.
Well, and you know what's
So,
going
yeah.
on in a working set that way, and you don't undervalue everybody else because even though pretentious actors and everything are like, oh, I'm all about the work, and it's like, well, asshole, there are other people working here to make you look good and to give you a platform and a stage or a film set to do
Exactly.
stuff. So let me
Yes,
take another left turn here away from that,
please.
and so what was it from that point that, when you started acting and you were out in LA, what made you think like, okay, I don't know if it's like you missed being on a stage or just did somebody say like, you ever thought about doing stand up? You're like funny as hell.
Okay, so when I finally, after I graduated and I moved out to LA, I actually moved out here and I had a roommate with a girl that graduated college at the same time as myself. She's a very talented comedic actress. She can also do drama really well. She's just talented. And she's one of those people that it comes very naturally for her. And I never felt like it was anything that came naturally for me. It's something that I have to really work on and be aware of. Um, but yeah, we were roommates and she would go on audition after audition and do like 24-hour play festival and all that. And I would watch her and I would be so intimidated and so terrified. And I couldn't understand how she could just do it and make it look so, in my mind, I was like, she makes it look so easy. And she's connecting with other people. And I was just like, oh my God. And so I just was so stricken by so much fear that what ended up happening for me is I ended up letting the fear win. And so for many, many years, I found a post production. I found a life in post production. It paid well. It was consistent work and money and jobs,
Mhm.
and that is where I found myself. And I'm grateful for that. But that's where I hid. I hid because it was safe. Because
Right.
I wasn't out there. I wasn't like the center of
It was an
anything.
easy, it was like a routine.
Yeah, yeah. And it was safer. And for the longest time, it was just safer to do that because it was very formulaic, Eric, right? So I show up, I do this 9 to 5, I do what I'm supposed to do, I edit, I get these assets, whatever. I understood it and it was simple and it was easy and not scary. So I did that until I couldn't do it anymore. Until the fear wasn't as strong as, well, you know what? Kind of going back to Krista, it's just kind of like what I haven't done anything in my life that I'm really proud of or that I really enjoyed and
Hmm.
loved. And that's a sad place to kind of be. So because of COVID, then I started reaching out to other creatives, learning, oh, that's how you can feel a part of. You put yourself out there to other people. You know, you connect with other people doing what you want to do and you
Right.
build on that. And then after that, I just started doing auditions. I became SAG. I got to be in other films and TV shows. I got an agent. And then after that, I was doing one workshop through SAG after with a casting director who doesn't really do anything now, but I was smitten because she had a huge, huge list of credits and things that she worked on in the previously that I knew of. And I loved it. And so I got to do a workshop and do a monologue with her. And I did a comedic monologue. And what I heard, I don't remember what I cannot tell you what she said, but what I heard and what I felt from her is I am not funny and I should stick to drama and serious stuff. So that is what I heard and that is what I felt. So it was at that point where I was like, I have to prove to this person that who I'm probably never going to meet or work with again, but I have to prove to her that I can be fucking funny, damn it. So I started doing stand up. I went to Flappers. I met people. Did a ton of open mics. I got booked at Flappers. I got booked at, I performed at Good Night. I performed at the Hollywood Comedy. So that just kind of happened with through nothing, no goals or specific like ideas or concepts of like what I even want with that there. My I feel like I've accomplished that goal. It's like I need to prove that I can be funny. And so I've gotten enough laughs doing enough shows now. I'm like, oh, cool.
It's
And I
weird.
think,
It's almost like,
no,
and a lot of people have said this. Sorry to cut you off there, but
no, you're
I
good.
wanted to jump in and say, like, talking to other people, not just on the podcast, but just in life, that there's like that one person that's just, and we see this like in a lot of, bio movies or whatever, where it's like that turned out to be the, ex-husband or ex-wife or whatever of
Yeah.
the person, the musician or the famous person. And there's
Mm-hmm.
always that person that's just like, well, I mean, your hobby is getting in the way of us doing our thing, and like we have bills to pay, and we have these picnic plans on the weekend with my family, and it's just like at a certain point, it's just we have those things. We have our family, we have our friends, we have our day job to pay the bills or whatever, but um and I find this too in life that you just naturally gravitate toward people who might not be getting paid millions of dollars to do whatever makes them happy, but they never give up on that creative outlet because I feel like, and maybe it's true for some of the people too, where it's like if that were to be yanked away or taken from you or dried up, people I think would die inside.
Yeah.
Right.
Because like what you said, it is very the audience feels whether or not you're connected to your own stuff and connected to yourself. And the audience loves raw, real shit. That's why we
Well,
love
and it's like you
like
have to read the room,
right.
And like one thing, I was talking to a friend of mine, like about a year ago, and she was thinking about getting into stand up, and she was like, "Well, how do you put a set together?" And she's like, "I have some funny stories and this and that." And I kind of like helped her through emails, and she was sending me bits and things. And I said, well, everybody's different, obviously, but what worked for me back in the day was I put my mind like, okay, it's like a concert set list, and your war horses or the radio hits or what people know or if they've seen you before. I always said, okay, pick your best three bits or stories or whatever. If you have like 20 minutes to fill or something, like if you're headlining somewhere, like
Yeah.
your funniest thing has to be the last thing of those three. Like you're funny, like this is me, not you, but like this is what worked for
Yeah.
me. And then the funniest story was always the last thing I got to because you want the audience to last thing they see is like your best. And oh my God, that's great. The second best thing had to be the first thing because it's going to kill. It's worked for you before. It's solid. Like you get in there, you grab them. And once they're there, they'll eat anything out of your hand because they're like, oh my
Mhm.
God. And then somewhere in the middle, you have to have that third bit where it's like, and they could go move anywhere in the set, but it's got to be that thing where it's like you had two things that maybe didn't connect or maybe just die to death or it worked, 2 weeks ago, but for whatever reason, this audience was just like, oh, funny high school story where you run into somebody from high school, whatever. And then you're like, oh shit. So you got to just reach into your pocket and pull out that thing in the middle of the set that's like that guaranteed laugh. Then
Right.
it's like that safety net and it brings you
Yeah.
back. And then
Oh,
hopefully
totally.
you got enough, whatever, juice, whatever you want to call it, to
Totally. Oh,
get to the last
absolutely.
bit where it's like the home run and it's like you leave them laughing. But it doesn't always, like you say, work for everybody. In fact, I'll segue that into the next question, which is, have you ever had to deal with hecklers?
No, I've been so lucky. I think one of the things that protects me, and because we all like I know in the industry, whether it's the stand-up comedy world or the acting world, we hear about branding, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's your character type? What type are you? Um, one of the things that I get whenever I leave stage, and that's the beauty of open mics, is go to as many open mics as you can. That's how you get
Right.
comfortable with the stage and you get
And you
comfortable
see
with,
what people are doing and what's working, what's not
yeah,
working.
and what's working, what's not. Yeah, that's how you learn. That's our gym, right? That's how we work out. Just like actors, we take classes,
100%.
cold
Yeah.
reading, whatever. Same thing with comedians. You do the open mics. That's your workout and how you learn and practice new material to see like because sometimes maybe it didn't stick the material whatever story didn't stick that one time, but if you just rework it and reword it differently, then bam, gold. So it's just a matter of working it out. But yeah, so I lost my train of thought. Eric, can you help me
No,
get
it's
back?
okay. I was just going to build on what you were saying and say that also a thing that I've learned from experience or just watching other people is not only do you got to read the room, but it's like you got to know your audience because if you're
Yeah.
performing at a college, they're not maybe there's like philosophy majors in there or whatever. You might they might get some of the older references, but mostly it's going to be about they're thinking about drinking, partying,
Yeah.
whatever. You're making fun of the local football team or whatever. But it's like if you're in an older crowd of like, depending on if it's a big city, you're going to have people like 50, 60 years old and they're in there and they got tickets to the show and they're there and they're like eating a meal with like their husband, wife, whatever. And they're like, oh, ha ha ha. And they're kind of like half watching you. But it's like sometimes it's like you got to do a little recon and you got to go to the venue beforehand and like go to, like you're saying, go and see a show before you do your show and be like, oh, I can't do like XYZ joke. I've got to either write some new stuff or I got to pull out some other things because I'm going to die of death if I try to do stuff that people in their 20s and 30s can relate to if the crowd is like 50s and 60s.
Yeah, and to kind of play off of that and going back to what we were talking about, like knowing yourself, knowing who you are and what type of person you are, I think that is the most important and most underrated. Like the comedians that I've watched and learned from that I feel are very successful in what they do. They know who they are, they know what type of person they are, and they play on that and they own it.
Right.
So, you have the goth girl and she is fucking goth and like she is goth and she is metal and
Hardcore. Yeah. Hardcore
that
about
and that
whatever
is
they
who
are.
she is. And she will not play or pretend to be anything else. And that is her bit. And that is who you see from the second she's on stage to the second she leaves. That is who she is. She's
Right.
not playing around. You see and then you have the guy who's a total like medhead, pothead, a metalhead pothead. And it's just like, but that is who he is. And he does not deviate from that. And I think one of the things why I haven't had anything like really, really bad, like I haven't had hecklers, is because the type of person I bring up on this stage is like, I don't know how to say it. Maybe you can help me give it words, but people have said when I've left the stage, you are very likable.
Affable.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I am not the person that you are going to like. I'm not the comedian that's going to be on stage that you're going to go and slap.
Oh, like
Like that is not
confrontational.
me.
Yeah. You're the
Yeah.
best friend and
I'm
you're
not the
like, I
person.
want to hang out
Yeah,
with that girl.
I'm
Yeah.
not gonna. Yeah, I'm the person that you're more than anything. You might feel bad for me and want to try and give me a hug, but you're not gonna want to slap me. So
They're
that is
like, oh, oh,
yeah, yeah. Like oh, poor thing, leave her.
oh.
Yeah,
All these fingers are pointing back at me.
yeah,
So let me ask you this. So you've been doing this for
yeah.
a while. You've been acting, you've been writing, you've been performing. Um, so back in the day, going back, decades, the goal of a lot of professional comedians was to land the lead on a sitcom. I think that that's changed a little bit. So, in your experience for yourself and for others that you've talked to, at these venues, is there more of that? Because there's a lot of people that just want to they get to that point where they're making good money at casinos or venues and they just
Yeah.
want to do
Yeah.
shows. They don't want to do TV or anything like that.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, a lot of the comedics that like they're so happy and they love um just traveling for shows and doing work. They adore it. Like they'll go to Vegas, they'll go to Mexico, they'll go to New York, they'll go and they love it and that is their thing. For me, that is not my dream at
Right.
all. Like I love Steve Martin to death. He is my all-time favorite comedian ever. But my goals are the sitcom. I absolutely want the sitcom.
Who doesn't,
Because
right?
yeah, I want the sitcom because here's the thing, at the end of the day, I'm an actor before I'm a stand-up comedian. That is just who I am.
Right.
I love stand-up comedy. It is something extremely special. It has allowed me to be more grounded in being myself, which is very, very good for me, being an actor. But I'm an actor for I love playing off the audience. I love a really great audience. That's a great one of the best feelings ever. But I love playing off of another actor. I love that connection. That connection is not easily replaced for me because I love that feeling of being able to play off of that. And also I feel like my I don't know. I feel the sitcom is the dream because the acting is the dream and not the stand up. The stand up is like the icing and the sprinkles on the cake, but it's not the cake itself, right?
Right.
Um, and but here's the thing is we don't know, right? That's the thing about being a creative. We never know what creative path is going to lead us to where we are supposed to be. I know that this is a huge part of it, and this has been necessary and worth it. I just can't see how how it's going to play a part because it will play a part. I just don't know right now from where I'm standing how it's going to play a part for me down the line.
Or 5 years from now, who knows? We could all be doing like
Right.
sitcoms or whatever that might evolve into on our phone on whatever the new
Yeah.
version of like TikTok is.
Yeah.
It's only going to be like 30-second bits and you got to
Yeah.
sell it online. So as we wrap it up here, I know it goes so fast. What advice would you try to give someone who is either trying out for like their first open mic or maybe their first acting audition?
Mm. Uh, you are never going to feel ready and you're never going to be ready. So just start and do it anyway. Just do it anyway.
Right.
And and look for the people, the others doing it with you that are supportive, that are kind, because they are there. Not everybody is your enemy. Not everybody is against you. Not everybody is out to, get you. Look for the people that really do understand that we're all in it. And if one of us wins, we all win. So stick with those people,
I would
so
agree with that. And I would also piggyback on what you're saying. And I would say that I don't know if it's just me getting older or whatever, and looking back on, things from the last however many years, I feel like there's always going to be that competition, especially for like a commercial. That person wants to be the lady holding the grape
right.
juice bottle and smirking up at the camera.
Right.
But the thing I've learned, and maybe you've learned too, is it's like you didn't get that gig. There's always another one. There's always
Right.
another because these things are infinite. They always need people for everything. And also going into like that audition room or whatever that open mic is, especially with open mics, because open mics you can do poetry, you can do comedy, you
Right.
can do music.
Yeah.
Nobody, and this I know it sounds like a self-help thing, but nobody is gonna do you. Nobody's gonna do anything like what you're doing. And if
Right.
you feel like you're doing something similar to somebody else, it just happened. It's not like you planned it, right?
Right.
And it's the only part of the equation in life, I feel like another self thing, whatever, that you can control is you.
Right.
So comparing yourself to somebody else doesn't do anything. It doesn't do any good. You don't want to get confrontational with somebody and be like, your thing is too much like mine. Like I'm doing a bit where I play a plastic banjo that doesn't make any sound, and they're just like, okay, dude, whatever. So, it's like you're projecting your bullshit onto them and they're like, what?
Yeah.
So it's up to
Yeah.
you to go through and be like, okay, well, I might not do the same thing they're doing, but I'm going to make my thing so much better
Yeah.
to
And
be
I
me, to do your own thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is yeah, it's learning to finally, fall into who I am instead of trying to be like mimic this person or be like this person. It's just it defeats the like, yeah, there's only one me, there's only one you. And yeah, and embracing that and seeing what comes out of that, I think is such a beautiful thing, Eric, like what you said. Yeah.
And I just had to do this because you mentioned Steve Martin earlier.
It's so wild and crazy.
Do you have any, even if you yourself haven't experienced it, do you have any either like comedy albums or specials or any things that you've watched favorite comebacks from for hecklers that you've seen other comedians do? Because I have a couple, but I wanted to see if you had any. Not doesn't have to be your own, but just like something else you've seen in a special or a comedy album. Some of them are just like you can't believe that they're that quick because it's like they've experienced it so many times that they're finally just like, you know what, fuck this clown, and they just lay into
Yeah.
him.
Thankfully, I haven't seen too many mean hecklers, but one thing that I do find fascinating is that because, in this where we live and how we live right now, like with the social media, right? So like everything that you do is on your socials. It's on IG, it's on TikTok, it's on all of that. So
Never close.
yeah, so what I find fascinating is that the professional comedians that like meaning this is what they pretty much do for a living, a lot of the stuff that you constantly see them posting online, and I didn't even think about this or realize this, they need crowd work and they need hecklers. Crowd work is gold if done right, and there are actually classes that you can take to learn how to do good crowd work. But I had no idea that the main reason that a lot of these professional comedians post so much of their crowd work and hecklers and
I
all
think
of the
that
stuff.
I have to say, like, to jump in on that, me personally, I don't like somebody will send me a YouTube clip and it's some guy or some girl on stage and they're just like they've got the microphone and they're just like oh, so are you guys here for your anniversary? And what if the person's just like, then you have to be like, anyway, back to my story about when I got lemon juice in my eye, and you're like, it's so awkward. It's like,
Yeah, but
I,
see, that's why you find the comedians that know how to deal with that. We make fun of that guy. What are you like a corpse? What the fuck are you doing here? Did your lady drag
right.
you here? Did you lose a bet? What the fuck? So you find the ones that actually, and the fascinating thing that I learned that why so many professional comedians post so much of that crowd work that they do, is because they have actually worked so hard at making their actual comedy routine, like what we were talking about, like their sets and bits that work for them, that they don't show those because
They don't
every
want to
one
give away
of
the
their
gold.
shows, if yeah, because that is going to be every single one of their shows, so that's what
Right.
they're giving you
It's
to
like,
see
oh,
this
well, I
is
like what this girl did and she did the
yeah,
stage and how she handled this rough person. And then you go to see the show and they're like, oh wow, they're even better like on stage and their presentation and their stuff. But so
yeah.
one of my favorite Steve Martin comebacks when somebody was like, I think it's on one of his albums, and somebody was like, you just hear this person, but you don't even know. It's like, hey Steve, and he just has the microphone. He's like, yes, I remember my first beer. It's
Yes,
just, and
see,
he's like right back into it. And then the crudest one I ever heard
so
was
good.
John Belushi. And this is like
Ooh,
years ago, even like maybe even before SNL or whatever.
the
And he
best.
was like in the middle of this really intense story about like his mom like laying into him and his brother, and like his mom had like just passed away, and he was like in it, like dealing with it, but like trying to make it funny. And some guy was just like, "Hey man, do that thing, do that thing, do that thing, or I'm
Oh
gonna come on the
God.
stage and kick your ass." And so Belushi just goes like, he's like, blah blah blah, and he goes, "Eat a cold bowl of fuck." And the guy just goes like they show the like pan around, they show the guy just like and just sits back down and he goes like,
Yeah.
and the genius part of it was Belushi is like literally doing this with his finger, but and it makes it look like he's tapping, like from the perspective like he's tapping the guy and the guy's just sitting down. And then he
Amazing.
said till his dying day or whatever, he swore to God, like the guy wasn't a plant. It wasn't planned.
No.
The guy was just really wasted. And it's just one of those things where it's like those people that rough and tumble grew up in cities like Chicago or
Yeah.
whatever, they have to be on it.
Yeah. No, and you said you just named two of the most brilliant comedic talents I've ever heard of and seen in my entire life. And they handled two situations very differently. One
Very
with kindness,
differently.
one with mean, and it both works because I think what it breaks down to is they were both reacting the way that they react. They were both being who they were. They weren't trying to pretend to be anything else but who they were. You fucking paid and you got them. And I think that is the gift that you just shared with us is like we got Belushi being Belushi, like, hey, fucking need a cold bowl of fucks. Like fuck off.
And the guy was
And
just
he,
like brain
yeah,
melting,
yeah. And then Steve Martin just like, oh, buddy.
just
Oh, you
nonchalant.
silly
Yeah.
little drunk. Oh.
Well, we
So
got to rope it in here and wrap it
yes.
up. But I just wanted to give you a few seconds here and say, what's coming up next for you, and also where can people find your work and contact you online?
Yes, oh, absolutely. Well, my all my socials are the same, so mostly IG, but I'm mostly reachable on IG. But at KJ Alfrey, so KJALFREY, and then just my website is another way to contact me, www.kjalfrey.com. Um, but what's coming up next for me is like, I just had we're starting to audition. We had, the huge strike. Then we had holidays, then we had the new year. So now things are finally starting to pick up. I've been reached out to about a couple of projects that people have thought about me for. So we'll see about getting those actual coming to fruition. So that's kind of how it starts. You have the people that know you, see you, like you, know what you can do, and then they go, "I'm thinking about you for this," and then we kind of see it grow. So that's where I'm at right now. That and doing more stand up. So hopefully, my last show was at the Hollywood Comedy. I might have another one coming up here in March at Cow Studio in Koreatown.
Wow.
So yeah, so we'll see. We're just keeping the ball going, and it's seeing where this creative life leads.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. You were delightful as I knew you would be. You're out there, you're kicking ass with your comedy. You're in movies that are coming out, they're in film festivals. So you're rocking it. And I wish you nothing but the best. And if I make it back to LA later this year, we got to hang out. I have so many ideas for things that I could write for you, and we'll figure it out.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much, Eric. This is so much fun.
No
I
problem. You're a
appreciate you.
delight. So if
Thank
anybody hasn't seen you yet, man, they need to get off their ass and go see you do a show.
Well, there's two different shows coming out in film festivals this year. I totally spaced about, but yeah, a movie and a TV pilot. So, but yeah, so there's always going to be. I'm always here. I'm going to be found one way or another. People will see me, whether they like me, but you will see me.
Awesome. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of
Oh,
your day,
adore
and
you,
we will
Eric.
catch up soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
No
Take care.
problem. Bye.
Bye.